Welcome. You're watching KCWI 23 HD this morning. Cartoonist, illustrationalist, or whatever you want to call him. He's a illusionist, whatever you. He's an artist. Brian Duffy here with us this morning, talking politics. I'm assuming because there is a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, and we're going to move off of the presidential race right now.
We are?
Yeah. We're just gonna leave it alone for a little bit. You know. I'm sorry. I'll come back to it next week. I'm sure there will be no changes whatsoever, right? Every single minute there's something new. But I want to talk about the Supreme Court nominations and the job that the President and also the Senate have a responsibility to do.
Right.
So, you know, we've got Senator Charles Grassley from Iowa. That is the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee at the moment. And right now what they are doing is they're saying that they won't even entertain any nominee that Barack Obama puts forth, which is amazing because their job in this entire process is to take a look at the person that comes in. They give their advice and their consent on it. And so what I thought of is really, I think this is the only time that this has ever happened too, where you've had a Supreme Court nominee not be allowed to, or a president not even be allowed to have a person name come up.
To be fair, Democrats have drugged their feet before on the other side, but they've never been to a situation where
never like this.
We won't even listen.
We won't even listen
to the nomination.
Now, lower courts, they've done this to lower court nominees. There's been quite a few of them that have not had even a hearing. So this is the first time that we've really seen the upper court in this situation. So So
what has this inspired you to do today?
Well, my initial idea, and this is the initial sketch that I was going to be using, and this kind of gives you an idea of how I work up the thought process on it. And in essence, it's just pure politics. And I don't think that the framers of the Constitution really had this in mind. You know, there is nothing in the Constitution in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, that states that the Senate has to, give an up or down, or even give a hearing.
Right.
But it's implicit. I mean, if there's an opening, you expect them to do it, and I don't think that they ever thought that we would do something like this or come to this point. But we have.
They're saying they want to wait for the next president that's going to make their way to the White House, that they want them to have their influence on who the next judge could be. But we're saying that's not even going to happen until November, and when they're sworn in around January. So that's quite a bit of time to wait without, having a vacant seat.
Well, that's quite a bit of time to wait, and especially when you've got a court that's split generally 4-4. So
let me ask you this. Would you rather have them not say anything and just say no to everyone that's brought up, or would you rather have them? Okay.
Because then they're fulfilling, then they're generally fulfilling their job.
And then you had the Biden piece where they showed Biden arguing against it at the time. And
But at that time, they didn't have an opening. There was no opening in the on the Supreme Court. So, but that's what it all comes down to. It's the politics, and I think that's why the framers decided to split the two branches that way and have the Senate involved in it too. Now, reading some of the background on it, I don't think that I think that the framers distrusted the Senate more so than they distrusted the president. They consider that the Senate more the aristocratic house.
When you start a character like this, Brian, what's the first thing you usually look for? It's the eyes, the nose, the mouth?
It depends upon what stands out on the individual.
Oh, I want to find out what stands out on it.
Because you've talked about before how every person kind of has a characteristic, and you start there and then you can complete the image. So for you, I'm assuming Grassley here.
Right. The eyes, I think, jump out. And then it's the mouth that kind of
I was just thinking, I'd love to see a picture, because you've been doing this forever. I'd love to see a picture that you had drawn of Grassley back in like the 80s to see how they're different.
True.
Just the color of the hair. Really, I don't think there's
everything else, even around the mouth, has stayed the same.
Even around the mouth, you know, he's somebody that has kept himself in good shape.
He has. He's been on our program and, you know, runs every morning.
Right.
Considering his age and how long he's been serving our state and our country, he's in great shape, actually. But
so with
not everybody's necessarily agreeing with what he's doing right now.
No, and you know, the last time that there was a recess appointment in the Supreme Court, now that's when a president will feel that the person is not going to get a hearing at all. He is allowed to make a recess appointment. And I think the last one was back during the Eisenhower administration, and that was Potter Stewart. Funny thing is that's when that's when Charles Grassley himself entered politics back 57 years ago.
Does it excite you at all that there's an Iowa judge, Jane Kelly, that's even on the possibility list of being nominated?
Well, yeah, it does, and that's going to make it even more difficult for him.
Because he knows her and has.
Well, he knows her, and also, I don't know what kind of excuse he'd be able to come up with on this. So, this is not going to play for him very well. And I'd heard a interview with him with some reporters, and he got pretty testy in it. So.
Uh-oh.
Obama
I was wondering who was at the end of
is.
his gavel there.
Yeah. So Obama's squished down there, and it's instead of this being fair, it's it's politics.
It's politics.
And that's generally what he's been doing. Now, this is a rough sketch. It doesn't always mean that when I come up with the final cartoon, it's going to look anything like that.
That was one of your original ideas. I think we have, the finished product that we can pop up on the screen as well, where people can check that out. Absolutely amazing. You know exactly who that is when you see that photo, but also making a pretty important statement.
Yeah,
there
so I completely changed it around, and I said, you know, this is his interpretation of advice and consent clause, and it was my advice is I'm not going to consent to anybody.
Always love watching you draw live on air. If people want more information about what you're doing or see your work, where can they do that?
My website is Brian Duffy Cartoons, and also on Twitter it's Duffy Inc., and that's I-N-K at the end.
There you go. Thank you, Brian Duffy.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We'll be right back. You're watching KCWI 23 HD this morning.